Good morning.
Morning, Marjorie. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm saying I'm kind of early to the party.
Well, you always early, aren't you?
Because I'm just making sure, because I know you said it would start a couple minutes before, so.
Well, I'm going to post in fact, I need to do that now. I'm going to post there's nobody here. I'm going to post the quiz right now. Let me do that now. So anybody who gets there a little early can actually start it early, because we are definitely going to be done at 25 after, and you need to, it's a lot to do in the time. So, and if you're not finished, you can't submit it.
Right. I saw
It's
that.
that kind of quiz. So, and you have to do every question. It won't allow you to not do all the questions. So you have to do all the questions and you have to finish in time in order to submit it. So you gotta get rolling. So what I will do is just be a little kind and get it all, because it's 5-2. I get
Right.
it all where it ought to be right now.
Okay. That would be great.
So
Hmm.
the early birds will catch the worm, I guess, as they say. Do you see it?
Let's see.
You have to go to Google to see
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, to pull it up from the assignment, the class
Yeah,
assignment.
it's called in-class quiz.
Okay,
What I can do, I think,
class work.
let me copy the link and I will put the link in Zoom.
Coming.
Put the link in Zoom in the chat.
Okay. See, this is it. Quiz. Sure. There we go.
So Ian, you're gonna copy the link inside the Zoom, the Zoom window?
I just placed it in the chat.
Okay,
But you should go to Google Classroom
right.
Mhm.
and you'll see it there. Let me log in to make sure that it is, and log in as a student.
Yeah, I see where it showed up, but it's not letting me get into it.
Yeah.
It's not letting you get into it.
No.
Yeah.
It shows quiz.
Oh,
So-
it may not be letting you get into it because
Yeah.
I think I set the time for 10 o'clock.
Ah,
Yeah.
So it won't let you. Did I set the time for 10? Let me try. Give me a second. Let me try. You went through Google Classroom?
yeah, it comes up as quiz, Google Forms.
Yeah. The link allows you, the link that you put in allows you to go straight to the classroom. But when you hit open, it's not allowing you to access the quiz.
Yeah, it just says quiz in property management, quiz 1, and it just stops there. It's not activated.
Oh, it's weird. All righty. Okay, got 2 minutes to get that fixed.
Yeah,
I know I put it on the schedule, but I thought I'd taken that off. The schedule said that it started at 10, ended at 10:25. I think I took the start time off in case someone got in early and wanted to start it early.
Mm,
But let me see. Okay, let me try this. Go into the stream. Something. Okay. The wonders of the electronic world is that things never want to, oh, quiz one, two, they have two quiz ones. It's interesting. Oh, this one is in the bin. All right. Okay, I think I gave you the wrong assignment.
Yeah, this is for 45 minutes.
I gave you the wrong copy. That's what's happening.
Oh,
I got to give you a couple more minutes. Let me get that together.
okay.
Mm. Okay, folks, try this one.
Okay.
It says QPM. Can you see that one? Let me put the link. Let me put the link in the stream. It says quiz today. I'm posting it in the stream. I'll put it in WhatsApp as well. Hopefully that works this time.
I'm not seeing
That's
it.
QPM, right? QPM 2020 0702.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's not working either.
You
No,
want,
I'm doing it now. I'm accessing it now.
You want?
Yeah,
What's
it's up.
that?
I have it.
okay, I
Okay.
don't. So, did you just, is that a one you just sent?
Yeah, I just sent it. It's,
What?
Kevin, how did you access it?
Just, I used the email link.
Okay,
Use
so,
the email link from,
Yeah.
oh, it emailed you a link. Okay.
Right.
yeah, okay, so open. Quiz today.
So I'll give you guys until 10:30. Well, I have to give you until about 10:30, 10:31, 10:32. I want to make sure everybody gets in first and then we can.
Okay, I got
I'm
it.
not gonna start. Okay, so everyone should have it. Anyone with a problem? You should be in and you need to get going because you only have 25 minutes. I'm gonna do 25, 20, give you extra time because it didn't go smoothly at the beginning. So we can end at 10:35. I didn't get a chance to force the end of this quiz, so we're gonna have to end when I say end. I did have it, the other one set up, so we can just, it will just stop it. Cleophas, are you on? Let me see who's here. Oh, he's not here, but he's sending me a message in WhatsApp. Okay, everybody's on, right?
Yes.
Good. I should ask if anybody's not on.
Are we talking about on with the quiz? Morning, everybody. Sorry, because I'm
The
not,
quiz, yeah, you should have started the quiz by now.
I can't, I'm pressing the button where it says quiz in property management, Google Forms, and I'm getting an error message.
Are you pressing the one that says Q, what does it say? The last one. Did you go into?
Okay, I think I see the last one now.
Yeah, let me
Okay,
delete.
fine, I'm in now.
All right, let me delete
Okay.
the others. Let me see if I can delete the others. They were not working for some odd reason.
Wow.
You done, Kevin?
Yeah, and I got the grade.
Wow. Don't stress me out.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, I see that one person has completed and submitted their assignment. I am going to, because we had a rough start, I'm going to be a little lenient and give persons until, I think I said 10:35, and we will stop abruptly at 10:35. So you guys should be really getting through it at this point.
Oh,
A pleasant good morning, everyone. Are there any half points given? Jeez.
I don't think everybody's finished yet, Crystal.
Crystal, you should see the points that you're getting. It's every question tells you how much points it is, and you either get the points or you don't get them.
Yeah, she was asking if there were any half points. I agree with her on that.
Yeah.
Ah,
Okay, we've got 3 minutes. Okay, Lachey, Georgia, and Cohen I don't see any of them on this call. I'm not sure why. That's interesting. The Shea, Georgia, and Cohen, I guess maybe they're not here because they have not handed in their assignment. But they're not on the call. They're not in the class either. So I guess maybe that means they're not here today. Give me 1 second, everybody. Okay, good day, everyone. Let's continue. So how did you do before we get into the class?
That was brutal.
It was tricky. Yeah, it was definitely
was-
tricky.
Brutal.
Man,
Oh,
Did anyone get 100%?
no.
I doubt it.
congratulations if they did.
Yeah.
If they did, is correct.
Oh, such simple things like that. Every single point took away an entire 4 points or 3 points. Just if you
Yes.
make one error, you know? So if
Yes.
you have 6 points and you get 5 out of 6, you get 0. That was like, what?
Yeah, that part was definitely brutal. And if I
Yeah.
had realized that that was the way it was going to happen, then I probably would have revised those answers.
Yeah.
That's the reason I asked if there was going to be half points, because you need to go through them and like see where persons would have went off and put like a point here, a point there, because it was a very interesting quiz.
It was.
Yes, yes.
It was. And Crystal, I hope you didn't think that I was just telling you, when you said, are there any half points? I felt your pain. But I knew there were still other people like working on it. I was like, don't give them no ideas. Don't give them no ideas.
No, but I'm cool. I'm cool. It was just very interesting in how it was worded.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I know what to expect for.
Moving forward, right, right.
Yeah, the good thing about this, and I keep telling you guys, do not focus on grades. You're here to learn something, not to get a grade. And I'm certainly, as I explained before, I am not here to have anybody fail. So that's, I have the opposite the opposite purpose here. One of the things I want you to take away from this is that this is gonna be the format generally of how you're gonna have to tackle, say, a final exam. It's gonna have pretty much this kind of stuff. So you want to practice doing this. So I'm certainly going to give you more of this to do. Some quizzes are going to be your assignments to take home, so you'd be able to actually, they'd be a little more difficult, but you'd have the opportunity to look up stuff and so forth and so on. There'll be some quizzes like that. But we're going to have a couple more in-class quizzes like this, maybe after every 3 or 4 chapters. So that's we've only got 12 chapters, so probably have about 2 more quizzes, or 3 more, but definitely 2 more that will cover the material in the chapter and cover some of the things that we talk about, and give you a practice on going through this kind of format and this way of dealing with the challenge of answering questions. Anyone had, I mean, I know we've already discussed the challenge that we had with the ones where if you just missed one of the choices out of the many choices, you got bomb rushed with a 0.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you had to be complete in your knowledge.
Mhm.
And of course, any comments, because you would have gotten the results and be able to see where you went wrong, right?
Yeah, it was almost instant.
Good.
What
So,
I did question, and it's not necessarily a question, but it did make me think after realizing the answer, was that in the Bahamas, there would be class property management companies that would have BREEAM membership. Now, I know there are a number of real estate companies that offer property management. So I didn't think to say, okay, they don't, but not looking at them solely as a property management firm. I didn't think of it that way.
yeah, because they're not registered as property management firms, they're registered
The real estate
as
agencies.
real
Okay.
estate agencies.
Yeah.
That's what they have. That's what they have their licensing to do. And as we spoke earlier, the opportunities that we have, persons in this class, is that you have an industry that certainly does exist to some extent, but you have an opportunity to grow something into something massive, because you can make it, there's a void. And those who know the creation story, I'm moving about, sorry. Those who know the creation story knows that creation depends on voids. You really are in a good position to create something new if you have a void. And we certainly have a void in the property management industry. And I believe the younger persons in the industry, up and coming people like you, are the ones who can make the industry what it will be. You want to keep focused on the fact that you're able to do that. Okay, today. Okay, I think someone's mic is open. Must be Kevin.
That's fine. Make it a little-
Kevin, you saying something, or your mic is just open?
No, I think it's open, but I mean, yeah, in terms of the skills of the property manager, the financial manager, investment manager, I think all those were ticked. I know I ticked some, but I mean, I didn't know the scope was so broad.
Yeah, that one was a trick question, right?
Yeah.
That one was a bit of a trick question. Yeah. Okay, so let's get going. We have a bit to cover, and it's almost 11. So I spent 5 minutes doing what we promised to do the last time. We promised to talk about a little bit more about the whole issue of bias. And that is we spoke a bit about this, how bias affects the industry. So if we break the industry down into you, the professional, and the people who you're serving, the people who you're relating to, if you make a general list of people that the property manager is going to relate to, the property manager obviously is going to relate to property owners. They're going to relate to clients, people who use it, what I like to call property users, and you're going to relate to property service people. So that's anyone from plumbers to massage therapists to whatever, food suppliers, anyone that's going to be providing some service to you or to the owner or to your property user. Those people, I'm going to call them property service people. And then there's another set of persons that you're going to have to relate to, and I call these people regulators or sort of persons in authority. You certainly can't exist in the Bahamas unless you're relating to people in government and people who are regulating an industry. We don't really have regulators for the property management industry because that's where we're trying to head to make it go. But business license and everybody else, these are people you're going to have to relate to. So in relating to people, there's always the question of innate biases. And we spoke a bit about some of the general biases last time. I won't go over them because the question we were left with was, what about biases when we were talking about, and I think specifically we were talking about biases against people because of gender choices or gender places where those persons are. So I assume, and I'm going to let Crystal clarify this for me. So I'm assuming you're talking about people who have identities that we don't consider, still don't consider mainstream. But they're certainly part of our society. So that's persons who identify as homosexual or these other identities. How do we look at biases or prejudices or discrimination or relating to anyone? And again, I'll go over. We're talking about whether this is the property manager, whether this is a tenant, whether this is the property owner, whether this is someone in authority, whether this is a service personnel or a service company. How do we overcome the biases that exist in these quarters? And some people may even ask, do we have to? So could we start a quick discussion on that? Krista, I'm going to pick on you.
Not a problem at all. For myself, with being in the industry that I am in, I worked, I think it was like about 4 or 5 years with an individual of that. And someone said in a pod earlier, you're not to consider them as that type of lifestyle, but that choice of living, let me put it like that, that choice of living. And back then it wasn't as all in your face as it is now. He was very conservative of how he carried himself, even if his mate would have come to the job to pick him up or anything like that. We knew of his choice and it was not flamboyant. However, now, because it's being more accepted as a norm, you would have individuals pushing it in your face. So it's more, how can it not affect you as a professional, as well as your stance on it? If you are not agree in agreement with that type of choice.
That's a great question. Anyone has, again, we're talking that we've been professionals here. So how do we tackle these things? Because some of us have very deep rooted feelings on these matters, one way or the other. And how do you tackle it? I'll add something what Crystal just said. You can have, you could be a property manager for, say, a set of condominiums. And you may have admitted a tenant who is deciding to display a certain lifestyle. In fact, you might admit a tenant who is a Muslim and wants to get up every morning and chant their stuff for a Rastafarian or somebody like that. You may get a tenant who is has a certain sexual orientation and is flamboyant about how they exhibit that. And other tenants may be a bit put out by that. Are you now going to say, well, hey, I'm gonna have to tell this tenant they need to go? How are you gonna deal with these kinds of things? I see a hand up from Odessa, so Odessa, you can chime in.
Okay, you guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
After you made your comments in, that added a whole nother level to it in terms of thinking about because first of all, we're offering a service as a profession, and no matter where you go, no matter what industry you are in, you will be meeting with persons who make their choices however they choose to make their choices. So I'm thinking that especially when it comes to properties where other people also have rights and things can be a disturbance, we're now moving into a place where we actually have to be so specific in our drafting of agreements that everybody's rights are respected, but it's going to be tricky because you don't want to offend, however, you don't want to kind of appear as though you're trying to steer certain persons away. So I think the way of dealing with it is on a professional level, no matter what preference persons may want to identify as or want to display as their choices in life. That is between them and whomever they answer to. However, as offering the service, I think you should not deny them the service. However, the standards and the policies that will be generally accepted in terms of nuisances and anything that's going to cause discomfort and disruption to the other tenants, stuff like that, I think will have to be clear in the agreements in that, or you may even have a property where you can actually have a section that allows it, because sometimes in hotels, this floor is non-smoking, there's only one smoking floor and anybody who wants to smoke can be on that floor, etc. So like I said, it's not necessarily only a sexual orientation thing, it could be the religion, like you said, and all of that. So it's going to have to be where property managers add a whole lot of creativity and be able to adapt in this ever-changing society that we live in, or the ever-changing world that we live in.
Yeah, the bottom line is that as a professional, you have to be aware that these things exist. And secondly, I think you need to constantly be driving everything into the respect realm. There has to be a way to find a place of mutual respect. So while you may not, for instance, like criminal activity, the fact that someone has been to jail for a crime, there's some people in the Bahamas who literally say, I do not do business with people who has been to jail. So they ask you for a police record. And if you have been to jail and you have a record, they will not do business with you, no matter how good you are, no matter how much the good Lord has saved your soul and you are no longer a criminal, they write you off. So that's another kind of bias. But I think part of the solution, this is tricky. Because part of the solution for that is to say, you know what, I'm going to respect you and you're going to respect me. You're not going to force yourself or any of your views or any of your behavior on me, and I won't force any of mine on you. And let's see how we go with that. But even that sounds great, but that ain't easy to pull off in some situations. Marjorie, sorry, that's Chris, that's Marjorie and Crystal. Crystal both have their hands up. I know Crystal put her hands down before, but I see both Marjorie and Crystal with their hands up.
Yes, I just wanted to actually add to what you're saying about the bias about sexual preference, because that is something that is really big in our market, as I'm witnessing. I've worked in several properties where the preference of someone changes the property ownership. For example, it was before the property, there was, very heterosexual, I guess, way of saying that the property was. And the folks were also older, and they also were more laid back, but all of them very wealthy. Then the climate began to change, where you could have in the Bahamas more freedom of display of preferences. So the places that I had worked, it changed in ownership, because now you had the persons, I guess to use the word of Crystal, the flamboyancy became more apparent, or the comfort level and the acceptance in being same sex was more apparent. So that also changed. So the older folks left because they did not appreciate this new ushering in of same sex of any kind. So how did that affect property management? Well, for me, because I was managing most of the properties, for me, it was a matter of remaining professional. My preferences don't shadow theirs. I believe that unless it's something that you hold in your heart that I cannot associate with someone from one of these biases, and it's something that will go against your morality or whatever you have, then in that case, you probably should dismiss yourself from the situation. But if it doesn't, what should also take bread out of your mouth, but then that's a choice between your morality and bread, right? But then if you maintain the fact of just professionalism, to which the book really outlines very clearly for us. It says if you remain constantly professional and don't let them invite you to things that take you away from being a professional, then I think it will be easier to maneuver in the environment. But if you want to bring in your beliefs, then it will definitely make it a more difficult way for you to work, because you constantly think about the person's lifestyle, what they're doing, and all these other things. But if you remain constantly professional, I feel that you would definitely not have to worry about their lifestyles. My 5
Thank
cents.
you, thank you. And when we talk about ethics later on in our sessions, we have a whole section on law and ethics. One of the things that is very important to get is that you obviously do not wish to accommodate or deal with or yourself be with anyone involved with illegal or criminal activity. That's a no-no. So obviously, if you know someone's renting your your condo to conduct a house of prostitution for the next year. And the law says that prostitution is illegal. It doesn't matter how much it's accepted, it's actually illegal. And sometimes you have to really draw this line between accepted community behavior and illegal stuff. It's illegal. And the problem with illegal versus accepted is that it means that law enforcement can pull up into that situation and actually arrest somebody. It doesn't matter that you don't think anything's wrong with it. I can say, for instance, as a father, I constantly said to my sons, it's like, hey, if you want to smoke weed, fine, but do not smoke any weed on my property and don't bring any on my property. It's no matter that everyone in the Bahamas is smoking weed, the law says it's illegal. So the problem is, you could have a joint at my house and the police comes there because one of your friends decide to call the police and tell them you have marijuana. They pull up in my property and suddenly I have a legal issue on my hand. And as a property manager, to think of that, it's like okay, it might be acceptable, but is it actually legal? And if it's not legal, you have to say, no matter what I think about this and how acceptable it may be, it's not legal. And so I'm not going to tolerate it. If there are no more comments, then Lamar. I think Lamar had something to say.
No, it's just to let you know you would put yourself on mute.
Oh, sorry, yeah. I'm trying to take my video off. Yeah, so if there are no more comments, let's roll into trying to get through some of what chapter 4 is talking about. Interestingly, chapter 4, if we think about it, it really sort of impresses a bit on, this is something that real estate people really look at a lot, or some of them look at, and that is, how do you determine the value of property that you're dealing with? And I'm going to start off by asking a question. I'm obviously presuming that everyone read through this chapter. Could we have a quick analysis using the word from the book as to what the difference is between a property appraisal, which is something you have to be familiar with as a property manager, and a comparative market analysis? What is that difference? Again, radio silence.
Well, the property appraisal is pretty much, just to give the definition of the property appraisal first, that's pretty much the giving the full value and listing of what is on the property, what the property offers. And then your second question, your second half of the question was which part?
No, I was asking, what is the difference between a comparative market analysis and a property appraisal? So you just told me what a property appraisal is.
Okay, and the comparative analysis?
Yeah. The title actually tells you what it is. One of the things about, the beautiful things about the English language is if we really settle down a little bit and let the language lead us, a comparative market analysis kind of tells you what it is, although it's using big words. You are comparing, you're doing an analysis, which is an examination of the market, comparing things within the market. So that's really what that is. And to put it in different words, the comparative market analysis is the property manager going out and looking at a property in comparison to what is in the
The
market.
market.
Right.
Whereas an appraiser comes and look at a property and says, you know what, this property has a three-story house that is 30,000 square feet. It has a pool. It has really great landscaping, and on and on and on. These things have these. The property is newly built or is 50 years old, and these things have an impression on the value. Yes, the appraiser may consider as a part of the value where the property is located, but that's a small thing. They're not going out and saying, okay, because someone has a 4-bedroom shack in well, I'm not going to say Life and Key, but a 4-bedroom shack in Sans Souci, because it's in Sans Souci, it's worth, $500,000. No, it's still a 4-bedroom shack. And it's worth what a 4-bedroom shack is worth. But comparative market analysis is vaster than that. Anybody else with any comments?
Right, the appraisal is more of a professional service that you actually pay for. Whereas the CMA really relies upon the property manager's skills that he acquires personally. So one really is an outsourced service that you actually pay a professional to do for you. And as you had mentioned, the professional has certain things that he's looking for to gain value, the value of the property. He's not looking for revenue or whatever have you. He's looking at just a valuation line. Whereas the property manager, it seems as if he's going broad-based and using his professional skills, his expertise to look at the property individually, what offerings the property itself has, and also he's looking at the broad base of the surrounding issues with the property, its location, certain other things, weather. So he is using his skills to understand exactly this property and how this property fares in relation to other properties. And probably the goal really is to maximize revenue and see how much revenue he can generate with the property. So one is professional and one's a personal service.
Okay, thank you. That's a great input. Lamar?
Before you run away from that point there, Kevin, I'd like to say that you can't just differentiate it just like that, because who do you get to do your property appraisal? It's usually a surveyor, correct?
But sometimes you have persons who don't do surveying, but they actually do appraisals, for sure.
There's usually a properly certified survey. So there's a difference in the Bahamas. We have quantity surveys and we have property surveys. We have different levels of surveying qualifications. But at some point, those same persons are also doing comparative market analysis. So you can't just write it off that the person that does the CMA, who could be yourself, but more than likely it will be a properly certified person that either overlooks or certifies your CMA. So you don't want to just say that it's not somebody, that it is somebody who's just using their opinion. It is somebody who also does know what they're doing. And so with that said, another point I wanted to add in is that the CMA, because I think I didn't really find it in the book the same way, the CMA is something that is, even though you want to consider the opinion, it is a localized opinion. So there's a, what do you want to say? There's a 1 mile radius that this CMA applies for. So as Ian mentioned, you might have a one bedroom shack in Sans Souci, but that 1 bedroom shack in Sans Souci is definitely not worth what the 1 bedroom shack in Life and Key is worth. And so it is in the Bahamas specifically based on 1 mile radius. In other parts of the world, it's a 7 mile radius. Like if you were in Beverly Hills, for example, Beverly Hills is 7 miles. So that's why it can be based on a localized opinion. But in the Bahamas, apparently the current standard is 1 mile radius. So obviously that can mean different things, because if you think about it, the White Grove is 1 mile away from Chippenham, but you wouldn't consider those things to be priced the same. So it again becomes a localized opinion. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Lamar, because I live out east, and there are actually places on the borders of Sans Souci that suddenly turns into Fox Hill. And the houses are very, very, very different. And I'm talking about on the border.
Yeah.
You literally can step out of a yard and at the edge of the more well-appointed houses in East, especially the ones that
Eastwood's
start on
is
Eastern
Fox Hill.
Road and go up, and you can step out of those yards and walk a couple of feet, and you're in a clapboard house. and so 1 mile radius doesn't even help them.
No, no, but I mean, it does in the long term, because if you know the history of the Bahamas, well, the history in New Providence, at least, with the over the hill concept, all of the wealthy persons used to live on the ridge that started from out east and came to downtown, and all of the poorer persons lived right on the other side of the hill. But the persons who lived right at the base of that hill that were Black, they were considered the wealthiest Blacks. So it does help to an extent.
Yeah.
But
All right.
yeah, I do agree with the Fox Hill area. You know, I mean, I live in the area, and it the 1 mile radius really is pretty hard to assess, because I've passed homes which are luxurious, and 2-story, 3-story beautiful homes, and then you ride 2 seconds and you see a clapboard house, you see children walking around barefoot in the yard. I mean, so in terms of looking at the property and looking at structures and proximity to, let's say, eyesores and crime, yeah, I mean, if you're taking the CMA analysis, you really have to be subjective and probably use other analysis to determine the property value, because and also it seems as if poverty and wealth do coexist in the same area.
Yeah, and certainly at the heart of the market analysis is the property manager has to somehow come up with, again, we talked about bias earlier, a kind of unbiased soul when they're trying to do this comparative market analysis, and they have to understand that they're doing an investigation. And investigations normally mean that the investigator has to shred from themselves preconceived ideas. So, for instance, what we're just talking about, I live in Fox Hill, and I've had the interesting experience many times, not 1 or 2 times, where I would call for someone to do a service for me, like a plumber or someone like that. And I would say to them, this is my problem, about how much is it gonna cost? And they would say, oh, that's $50. And then they pull up to my house and the guy starts rolling his eyes around his head and says, oh, I made a mistake with my price. It's really, he hasn't even looked at the problem yet, but it's really $400. And that's because he's now looking at my house as opposed to when I told him that I lived in Fox Hill. So the property manager themselves have to kind of shred themselves of these biases. If somebody says, I want you to manage a property for me in Fox Hill, and you're the property manager saying, I ain't interested in managing that Fox Hill. You could be surprised that in Fox Hill, there are some homes that are much more luxurious than some of the homes in Lightfoot Key. So you have to shred yourself of bias. The other thing is that's because you want to do an investigation. And an investigation, to do a good investigation, you have to approach it with an open mind and find out what you will find out, as opposed to determining what you're going to find out before you actually get involved in the thing. And then we're talking about a market analysis. So the word market becomes important. We're talking about a market analysis. I'm going to pick on Georgia. Georgia, what's a market? What does that word mean?
My hand was actually open. I wanted to piggyback on something you were saying
Okay, go ahead.
earlier,
Go
but but in
No,
return,
go ahead. Go
just
ahead
an
and
example
piggyback
I had
first, and then you can talk about the market.
just an example I had this year in building some townhouses, and it was a standard 2-bedroom, 2-bath off Carmichael Road. And I didn't think the off Carmichael Road was too, but I got the first quote, it was 181,000, no problem, 350 to build a 2. Now, that was the beginning of COVID. Now, during COVID, the quote I got was $851,000. So I said, where in the market am I going to build or rent these condos for off Carmichael Road with you pricing me at $400,000 per unit? When the area calls for, that's about $405 per square foot, whereas the area calls for $113 for sale. I said, you're pricing me way out of the market for this area. And it's just, they call it the inflation, they're calling it all kind of other things for the COVID time. But as you said, whether it's Sans Souci, Life at Key, or Carmichael Road, determines a lot on how much you can get for your rent. And I thought they were just doing an injustice there.
So, Georgia, before we talk about market, one of the things you're hinting at is something that a property manager really has to have their wits about them on, and that really Nassau is 21/7. There is really no distancing issue. I mean, in the States, there's some places you can be building that's 200 miles from the nearest supplier. And so getting material to the site may be costly. But I mean, there ain't no place in Nassau that really costs you more. If you buy something from JBR, getting it to you can get it to Life at Key in 15, 20 minutes. There ain't no place that has a distance issue or some hardship in getting materials there. The material supplier don't charge you more because you're building a place in Carmichael as opposed to a place in Venice Bay, or they don't charge you more. They don't say, oh, you know, the cement is going to be more because it's where this place. So it's very peculiar when we have service people, whether they be plumbers, whether they be electricians or whomever, deciding that they're going to change prices because of where something is located. The materials that they're using cost exactly the same, no matter where it's located. The labor that they're going to have to put in to repair a bad electrical circuit doesn't change because that bad electrical circuit is located in a house in Life at Key versus a house in the Grove. It's the same bad electrical circuit. But somehow we have a mindset to say, hey, I'm going to charge these people 5 times the amount of money. And the property manager has to have the wherewithal to say, no. I am aware of what cement costs or what the labor cost is for this. And you know, and my opinions don't haggle with people like this. Tell me you're going to find somebody else to do it. Cleophas?
Morning. Just to piggyback off what she was saying, even not just in the market as for service, even in when you go to the bank actually does the same thing. When I went to the bank to do townhouses, if you tell them, say, okay, these townhouses are located Venice Bay, like you say, or what that one is, of the 7 C's or something like that, they're gonna tell you, oh, it's gonna cost you 2-3 times the amount than if I was just building townhouses in, I guess, Carmichael or anywhere else, Blue Hill, whatever. And I sat there and I was like, why? Because I'm getting the same blocks from JBR that's going Blue Hill, going to Venice Bay. The same wood that I'm getting from Tops is the same thing. But at the bank, they even have that perception that because you're building in a different location, it's going to be 2-3 times the amount, when in actuality, the materials are the same. Like the labor, like I don't understand it. Like that was the whole back and forth I had in that situation with dealing with marketing and pricing for estimates and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know how we fix this as a country, I guess, or as a profession. I don't know how we fix this issue, but it is quite real. It is very, very real. And the property managers has to be aware of it and make sure that you actually are astute enough to stand up in front of somebody who's going to tell you that their labor costs for repairing a broken pipe, where I'm telling you, I repair broken pipes myself, and the most you're going to spend on materials, say you're buying everything, even if you buy the tools, you're not going to spend thousands of dollars. Most joints are a couple of cents, or maybe it may be $1 or something, and they're spending less than $10, $20 on the materials. And then you think about the labor, you can get a broken pipe repaired. If you take more than an hour to repair a broken pipe, you're probably in the wrong profession. You can get that done in 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the most, and many persons much less. So why are you going to charge me $500 to do something like that? It's ridiculous. And the property manager need to be able to say, wait a minute, the CEO of a company, $500 in 15 minutes is, what they're what, 650 minutes in an hour. So that's $3,000 an hour. Nobody makes $3,000 an hour. Why should I pay you $3,000 an hour? But people will try to charge you those kind of amounts. Okay, let's move on to discussion a little bit. So why are we analyzing anyway? Let me see, Blair, what's the point of you doing analysis, comparative market analysis? Or I got to go back to Georgia before I ask this question. Georgia's asking what a market was. What does that mean?
The
You
market.
want me to answer what am
I'm gonna come back to you, Blair.
You piggyback on whatever the market is. But the market, as in any market, is a supply and demand for goods or services. And in this instance, I would assume it's on versus houses and property.
Mhm.
So the exchange of goods and houses, purchase or buy and selling of houses
All right.
or
Yeah.
property.
sorry.
Go ahead, Blair.
Yeah, I would also say, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing she said. A market is, it's where you facilitate like an exchange of goods or services. Now, we also need to take into consideration that a market doesn't have to be carried out or conducted in a brick and mortar. It can also be carried out virtually.
Okay, wonderful. And the other thing is that a market doesn't have to exist. You, as a single person, can actually create a market.
That's true. Very true.
There's some of us who actually limit ourselves by saying, well, there's no market for that. Meaning there's no transactional space. I have an idea, but there's no market for that. What's stopping you from creating a market? Because you can actually create a market, whether in a virtual space or an actual space, you have the ability to create markets. And a market also means or can mean an actual area, a space, where things come together. So a market, you can look at any particular space and you can make a market out of it. You can say, you know what, let me draw a circle around this particular area in Nassau. For instance, I can go crazy and say, I'm going to draw a circle around a couple of blocks in Coconut Grove, and I'm going to make a market for renting or developing rental properties in that space. That's been done through gentrification in other places in the US, where really broken down areas, guys have walked in and says, you know what, Yeah, this is a dump, but I'm gonna draw a line around this particular area and I'm gonna develop this into some off the charts expensive area in the middle of all this stuff. So you can make a market, definitely. Kevin, you had an input?
Right, I was just piggybacking. I was going to piggyback on what you said. People need to know exactly where they stand with the property. They need to know exactly what offerings the property has. The property has a pool. The property, has is a 2-story. The property has big rooms, big bedroom, big kitchen, whatever have you. All those nice property, those nice things. And the property is in a nice area. I'm just throwing this out. The property is accessible, and all these things. So you have to know exactly, where does the property rank in regards to other offerings, and you have to price accordingly. Some people have a price in mind, and the property offering and the property qualities doesn't really suggest, or doesn't really tie in or reconcile with that price. So you have to know exactly what is the property offering, or what benefits, is what accrue to the actual person who's renting. What benefits to the person who is actually the tenant, and what value they themselves will ascribe to the property, and you have to price accordingly. So the whole issue really is just you have to know exactly what you're dealing with, and what position you're starting with the property. You have to know it, and you have to make sure that the price that you're charging reconciles with those perceived offering, the property, the area, etc. Right. Don't let me hear. Everybody going quiet.
Yeah, I think someone's putting up some
Left
information.
side thing.
I think Ian is putting up something here.
Yeah, that's CMA.
Yeah, which is on page. Mhm.
Yeah, you got some people man to be offering some properties, some garbage properties, and charging you $1,000 to a month. But you go
Yes.
elsewhere and you can find a far better deal, a far better property in a better area. So some people just don't know exactly, what how the price will they have.
Yeah, there's like no, what do you call it? There's no specific pricing
Mm-mm.
to the space,
No.
which I'm experiencing now.
Okay, yeah, I had a little challenges now navigating back to my Zoom screen because I shared something with you. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, we have it.
All right, good. Now, that thing I shared to you, I just copied directly out of the book. And I wanted you to focus a little bit on it because it gave you some of the factors that you'd want to consider if you are doing a comparative market analysis. And so a comparative market analysis, to be honest with you, is something that an individual property manager has to kind of figure out. It's almost like making, going in your kitchen and deciding that you want to prepare a meal for some people coming to visit you. You don't necessarily have to use every single item or every single ingredient in your kitchen or every single method. You don't have to bake some stuff and then fry some other things and boil some things and on and on. You can kind of make a selection, especially based on what you're good at, and say, you know what, because I'm good at these few things, or good at these things, these are what I'm going to focus on. So if we look at this list that I have up, it's talking about the property manager looking at, in terms of assessing what it would value something at. What's the crime like? what are the risks? I mean, are we in Pinewood Gardens where every time it rains, everything's gonna flood? And if you think in terms of thinking ahead, you may even want to start thinking, okay, we're talking about climate change and sea level rising. Yeah, everybody wants to live and jump out of the house and dive right into the ocean. But if I'm going to be making money off this property for the next 50 years, I'm a young property manager and I want to make money off this property for the next 50 years, am I going to be challenged by the fact that the living room is going to be underwater in 20 years because of sea level rising? And is this something that I want to think about? So maybe I want to make sure that the property, if that's the risk, that the property is elevated at least 10 feet above where they think it's going to go. So the second thing is talking about risk, flooding, overcrowding. There's some areas that are where right now it's just bush, and we've seen some of these things happen. There is just bush, and you're thinking about, you have an empty piece of land in the property in the area, and you're thinking about doing something with it. You may also want to think about what is projected to happen in that area. Is it going to be one house per every half acre of land, or is it going to be 10 houses on every half acre of land? Because that's going to make a difference in terms of how things are going to be valued. What about, and the third thing talks about the median real estate prices over a series of time. And I want to give that a little bit of conversation, because a lot of us look at things, not just in comparative market analysis, but we look at a lot of things in terms of what's in front of us. So we analyze the now, but a lot of times it's important to look at how is this going over a long period of time. So for the property manager, you want to start collecting information on, say, rental rates or other type of rates over a long period of time. And you want to get minute, because one of the things you find out by being minute, by minute, I mean, you know that every April, the rates go up by 10%, because I've been looking at the rates, the monthly movement in rates for the last 10 years. And I can see on my graph, I can see in my figures that without a doubt, every April, there's a 10, 15% movement up in rental rates, in Airbnbs. I'm just making this up, by the way. You only know that by deliberately collecting information and putting it together, and even putting in graphical form. And that way you get very wise as to saying, I know the rates are going to go up by 10% because April's coming. Let me take certain actions to deal with that. And this talks about more things, the availability and quality of amenities. Property manager, we had something in the papers the other day, sort of almost immediately after the election, where the athletes who were given really nice land for winning gold medals and stuff like that, they complained that they had gotten these large tracts of land for many years, but couldn't live on them. So at the time they got them, I'm sure they were happy. Man, these people give me this huge plot of land, but it turned out that they couldn't live on them. They had them for 10 and more years and could not live on them because there were no amenities, no utilities, no infrastructure. So property manager has to look at that kind of stuff, and not just whether there's infrastructure. There's infrastructure in some areas for water, for instance, and there's no water pressure. There are some areas where when the lights go off anywhere, you can bet it's going to go off in this particular area. You want to know those kind of things. It may only go off in 10% of the island, but this area is always in the 10%. Those kind of things you want to know. You want to know when you're looking at properties, when was it constructed? And age of construction, an aged construction doesn't mean that something is bad. There are many periods of construction in this country where things were better built than they are today. But there are also some periods where things were not built that well. So you want to look at these kinds of things. How many, if you talk about rentals, if you're gonna go in an area where to be out there, 70% of the rentals in the area are already vacant, and you want to go and introduce yourself into that area. If 70% are already vacant, and that's a pretty high rate, it means that that's going to affect how you're going to be able to rent, if in the immediate area that is the case. So I want to have a look at at this list in really, really good detail and see how you think about these things when you are actually coming up and investigating what is the value of my interest in this property and how, and you want to look at all this stuff. The lower part of it talks about the demographics, the age of the property, the rate of appreciation, and appreciation meaning there that is the property value going up. And in some cases we're talking about, oh, the property value is going up, but we're not comparing how fast it's going up with how fast it's going up in the area 2 miles away or 5 miles away, because it may be going up much slower than everywhere else, or it may be going up much faster. And so you may be looking at a property in an area like a Carmichael or some other area where the property values are very low. And if you're not analyzing that, yeah, it's low, but pound for pound of over the last 4 years, the property values in this area have actually doubled when they've doubled nowhere else in Nassau. They've only gone up by 10% in other places. So this may be a good investment. And on and on. So property location, property size, the upgrades and maintenance and repairs you may have to do, proximity to stuff. That adds value to a thing. So for instance, if your clients are people who like to go to nice restaurants, who because they don't like to cook, you want to consider, if that's the clientele that you're looking at, that you're not going to drive your clientele or drive your investments to an area where there is nothing nearby for people like that. So kind of covered it, the style, the design, the architecture. These are the kind of things you look at. There's more stuff. So you can really look at this list and think about it. The question is, how do you use these items to come up with a value for something that you're looking at? And there are lots of approaches. The simplest thing is to put together a spreadsheet and to give some sort of maybe a scale of 1 to 10 for some selection of these items, and decide, well, I'm giving this property a grade of 5 or 2 or 10. That's something you can do. There are also tools, and I'm going to ask Lamar. Lamar, you familiar with comparative market analysis tools?
Well, as I was mentioning to you previously, there's apparently some software, however, it's not easily accessible. And so the tools that are generally used for comparative market analysis are the hard process of going through the Bahamas multiple listing system, finding out how much everything in the 1 mile radius of the location you were trying to sell or rent out is based on. And so it's a bit of a tedious process if you're not already a real estate agent here in the Bahamas.
Okay, yeah. Anyone with any more comments on the? And by the way, has anyone here visited the Bahamas multiple listing service?
No, no.
If we visited it before,
Yeah,
or I did so about a year ago, but not recently.
okay, anyone else? And so Blair has,
Yeah,
Yes,
if you
I've been
look it
on
up
the site as
online.
well.
Somebody bought the actual domain name for Bahamas MLS. Somebody bought the domain, so it links to their real estate website. So just be aware that
wow.
it says Bahamas multiple listed system. So just be wary when you look it up. If you go to just Google to find it.
Oh, I see. So they didn't protect their name and somebody bought it.
Exactly right.
That is interesting. As a matter of fact, so let's take a little diversion. As property management and business people, I really implore you to somehow get your own website. And in some, not that, or even your own domain name, if you don't have your own website, you can at least have a domain name and work towards getting a website. If you're so inclined, you can do a simple website yourself, or you can pay someone a couple of dollars to do it. But let's start with the domain name. A lot of us obviously are, when people are asking us for a Gmail, an email address, we're using our Gmail addresses or other addresses. It's also nice to have a business address. And I'll tell you, Gmail, for instance, offers a service where you can convert your Gmail address into a business address. So, and it's very easy to do. You just got to pay a couple of dollars for it. I think it's $6 a month or something like that. So if yours is to pick on someone, odessa@gmail.com, and you wanted your business to be called Dessa Skies or something, you can actually have Google or Gmail, whatever their name is, convert your I think it's called a G Suite account. You can create a G Suite account where they will give you a domain name that you choose. And then you can now say odessa@dessaskies.com. It's still a Gmail account, but it doesn't look that way. So I implore those of you who are in business and business minded, because it really looks nice and professional to have that sort of thing. The other thing that it does, certainly in my case, your Gmail account gets cluttered with all sorts of emails from all over the place, and it becomes very difficult to sort of manage and organize it. If you get a business mail account, you restrict it to the use of only your business, and you go to it only for business stuff and give it to persons only for business reasons. It becomes very easy to organize. Anyone with any comments on that? There's a quiet bunch today. What's happening? No one had breakfast?
I think we're all still reeling from our quiz.
Yeah, that test have me so stunned.
Yes. I feel that.
But, I got to go back to that then. I'm going to tell you this and tell you over. You're not here for grades. You're here to learn something. And one of the best opportunities for learning is to get stunned by knowing that there's stuff you don't know.
Yeah.
So I take the opportunity to go over that test. The stuff that you know, totally ignore it. The things that you didn't, this is your opportunity. The few things that you didn't get quite right, you want to focus on those things and make sure that you got them under your belt. Obviously, the things that you got right are meaningless to you because you know them and you got them right. the things that really are important are the things that you didn't quite get. You want to read over them. You want to go on the internet and do some more research on that particular subject area and get it under your belt. So the next time you have these kind of questions, you get it right.
Mhm. All right, so Ian, in regards to the listing, these various property aspects. I'm sure that the aspects of the property which are more valuable than others. Like for instance, you find persons who have kids, who have young kids, are more in tune with the area and the crime and so on and so on. I want to know that their kids when growing up wouldn't be exposed to any issues. You want an area that's not really high traffic, one that's close to parks or close to clinics, whatever have you. So I think when you look at assigning a scale, I think we need to really factor in exactly what first of all, what kind of client you're attracting, and what exactly are they looking for. And based on what they're looking for, you could probably assign a scale or measure to these different line items, because each person is different, and each person may have different needs. Like you may find a fellow who is single, all he wants really is an area that he can go and come back and without a fear of his house being broken into and his valuables stolen or his car wrecked. So I think each renter or each tenant, potential each prospect has a different weight or a different value system regards to these issues. And I think it's important for us to really understand what the client wants, so that we can grade properly. We can't use our own subjective mind. We have to really, view things from the client, view things on what kind of client we want to attract, and then assign the scales.
Interesting point. So, Crystal, do you think as a business person, say you're running a property management business, that there's an advantage or disadvantage in you deciding, look, I am only going to deal with these types of clients. This is my clientele has to have these particular characteristics. If you don't have these particular characteristics, I'm not going to deal with you. Do you think that's a good approach, a bad approach, is an approach that has advantages, disadvantages? Just tell us a little bit about what you think about that.
That will be based on the type of property. I won't answer that directly. It will be based on the type of property that I'm managing. Knowing the type of property that is being managed requires a certain type of clientele or a certain type of tenant to acquire the place. If I'm running a high scale property, I'm managing that. I know someone that cannot make ends meet, is probably working in an area that brings in a certain type of amount for their salary that does not match the rental. I know for sure that is not the type of tenant that is needed for that particular property. To say I am going to just specify the type of clientele I want, everyone knows the type of clientele or knows the type of property that they would like to manage or want for their business to manage to reap in the benefits, because we all are going into business at the end of the day for an income, a residual income of that. So with knowing the type of individual for a property is good, but classing it and just saying that I'm only dealing with this particular type of class of property or individuals, I would not, cap myself at that level.
Okay. Any other ideas there? Any other inputs?
I think when you have a manager who is not well trained, or who just let's say a scrub, it's a problem, because I've seen so many people, spending 3-4 months, 5 months in properties, and they throw all their bed and they stuff in the back of one truck and they go on to the next one. And these people are able to find places to rent, even though they left behind, let's say, damage and an unpaid rent or whatever have you. So I think in terms of being a property manager, you really have to have your hair screwed on right, because based on what I'm seeing now, a lot of property managers really are letting a lot of cockroaches in these apartments. or these rentals. It's like no due diligence is being done.
Kevin, you got some severe names for these people.
Yes, he does.
It's all,
Yeah, these are interesting points. I go back to something said right before you, Kevin, and I think there was mention that you could have, for instance, you're encountering a client and they're not making the kind of money that can pay the rent. Why should you accommodate them? Well, I think if you approach things with an open mind, you have to remember that sometimes your obvious impression may benefit from digging a little deeper. Because if someone is coming to rent something from you, and it's $1,000 a week, and you ask for their pay slip and they're getting $1,000 a month as a pay, it looks as if they're out of their mind for even trying to rent the place. Or you may want to find out, okay, how does this connect? And sometimes, in rare occasions, there is an explanation for why there's a disconnect. You may have a person making $1,000 a week who is sitting on $1 million fortune in the bank. That's, they're getting $8,000 a month from a trust fund. That's not a part of their income. There are some people who is renting an apartment who has put their house on rent. The apartment is $1,000, and in some cases, you have persons who are unemployed who are renting their mansion out for X dollars while they're living in an apartment that's costing, maybe 20% of what they're getting for the rent from the apartment, but they are unemployed. So you may have to dig deeper in some situations. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not gonna go at all into Kevin.
Something I'm considering now.
Pardon me?
I know I said that's a really good point because that's something that I'm considering now.
Okay, you mean you're considering renting your more expensive place and living in a cheaper place? That's
correct.
Yeah, I know a number of people who are doing that. They're in a place that has become, in their mind, more than enough for them, and they've reached a place in their life where their mindset has changed, or maybe their financial positions are causing some pressure on them. And says, you know what, I can find a place for $800 a month, but where I'm living now, this is my place. Someone is willing to pay me, $8,000 a month for this. So the difference is mine. Let me take it. And on top of that, the place is still mine too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know quite a few people that are doing the same thing. They realize that the market is hot, and in some cases they own apartments, and they decide to live in an apartment and rent the other space at a higher rent because of the area that it's in. The apartment can accommodate them. They may have kids off in college, so the house is pretty much empty. So for a year or 2 years, they can actually just rent the house, maximize on not having to worry about paying the large mortgage, and they go in one of their smaller apartments, and it works very well financially. And in some cases, it's not persons that may even be challenged financially. They just see an opportunity to bring in some extra monies, and they work with it.
Yeah, it's interesting that how creative you can be. Very good point, because there's some people who's like, you know what, I have an apartment or 2 apartments or several apartments here, and let me go live in one of them. I will have someone pay my mortgage for, I've got a couple of years left on my mortgage, so I'm gonna go live in my apartment for those 3 years that I've left. I don't have to, but I want to. I'm gonna have the person pay my mortgage and my rent. That way I'm not even, I could use that money for something else. There's all sorts of ways to look at it. And some people have the person pay the mortgage, the rent, and also all of my utility bills for where I am living now and utility bills for that place too. So, yeah. The market is something that can drive you to these things. Okay, let's talk a little bit for, we're close to what we envisaged at 12 o'clock thing. But I want to take a few minutes to talk about something else, the other half of that the chapter. We are going to spend a session talking later on about, as you notice, we go back and forth in these sessions a bit. But one of the thoughts here is to talk about promotion, because this chapter introduces the whole thing about promotion, advertising, and marketing. And I'm going to pick on Marjorie because I think Marjorie mentioned earlier that she has a bit of a marketing background. I believe some other people here are marketing background people as well. But the book tries to make it distinguishes between promotions and other things. So Marjorie, tell us a bit your view. I don't know if you read through what the book said.
Not all of it, but
On promotions, advertising, public relations.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, it depends on what property it is, if it's a residential property, if it's a commercial property. So that would definitely have to be put in place. And as far as promotions, we have so many opportunities when it comes to promotions. And mostly, especially here with our international clients, because I'm thinking more of the persons who are foreign investors. So for that, how do I articulate this?
Don't think too hard, just say it.
Okay, so for marketing, we have so many different options. Mainly in our particular environment, we have technological, such as online, using various social media realms, going into blogs or websites, as you said, creating your own website, Instagram, which is one of those social media opportunities, and word of mouth, which has proven to be quite essential. And even looking at our text coming from Gaydeen saying that it was one of the most prolific things in her case. But marketing, it can also be a very personal way of being, just depending again on what that property is. So in my case, this is a residential resort style property. So that depends on the websites you choose to market towards, or that depends on the kind of clientele that you are reaching out to. So it just depends on the type of property for the most part.
Okay. Anybody else? So what is public relations really, as opposed to that? People like to say there's a difference between advertising and public relations. What is that basic difference? Let me see if I can Cleophas, what is that basic difference?
I feel as though public relations relates more to managing expectations, managing perceptions as it relates to a particular thing, when sales promotions is really trying to sell a product and convince persons. So I think that.
Anybody else have anything to add to that? It's a really great synopsis of it.
But
And
yeah.
as property managers, you need to know that there is some angles to this, and you may want to make sure that you're not satisfied in just doing advertising, that you have to do public relations as well. But we'll dig a bit deeper in that. Kevin?
No, so with advertising, you're looking at a message, advertising pretty much is a directed message to a certain target audience. So it's a directed message, you're looking at pointing in a certain direction. With public relations seems to be, a reputational and ongoing event where you're trying to ensure that your company, the reputation of your company is stellar, that is communicated, and also is maintained. So it's like a relationship with the public. So you're trying to maintain that, whereas advertising, you're looking at directing a message to a certain target market.
Right. So public relations really, go ahead, sorry. Somebody else.
Yeah, you wanted to know sorry, I was in and out, the connection was bad. You wanted to know the difference between public relations and marketing?
Yeah, public relations and advertising.
Well, when I look at marketing per se, I would say that marketing is more geared towards a potential client. Whereas with public relation, your messages are not only being sent to the client, it's also being sent to all of the stakeholders that may be a part of your company, or that may be a part of your company. For example, the customers, the employees, the suppliers, investors, media. So I think that's a difference that we can look at too. The marketing, it's geared towards the potential buyer or the potential renter, whereas public relations, you're speaking more, the message is going to more than one person.
Mm-hmm. And one way to look at it too is this, that in one instance you are saying, hey, this is what I sell, this is what I have to offer to you, this is what you can get from me. In the other instance, you're saying, hey, this is who I am, this is why you want to never get me out of your mind. Whenever you think about property management, whenever you think about so-and-so, think about me, because you wake up in the morning thinking about me. I have a relationship with you. That's public relations. So as opposed to advertising where you're trying to get someone to come and buy something from you, public relations is trying to get someone to think about you all the time, whether they're buying something or not. So in fact, if you do good public relations, you're the kind of person who, even someone who has never bought something from you, if somebody says, I am looking for a property manager to do X, and they're saying that to a total stranger or to someone who's never dealt with you before, if you've done successful public relations, that other person may say, oh, I've heard of such and such a person, or so-and-so told me about Marjorie or about Lamar, about Georgia. I think you should check them out. They've never done business with you, but you somehow set yourself into the mindset of people so much that whenever they think about your area, they think about you. Then you've done good public relations. What are some of the tools that you can use to accomplish public relations? We know advertising is simple. You buy a space in the conventional media, or you do something in the digital media to make people aware of what you offer. But what about public relations? Public relations tend to be a bit more of a consistent and constant work. What are some of the things you can do? The book talks about some of these things as well. Kevin and Odessa. Odessa, you first.
Open houses.
Doing open houses. And an open house is just giving someone an experience.
Yes.
And there's nothing that is so gratifying to another human being than having an experience. And a lot of people who rely heavily on advertisement don't get that. When someone has an experience, yeah, they might not buy anything, but experiences don't leave you easily. Kevin?
Okay, I know the part of civic or different organizations, and give you a chance to network and get your name out there and rub shoulders with certain persons from different demographics. Let's say being a part of Kiwanis, being a part of various groups that have different interminglings, so you can really push your business. So the goal really is to push your business out there by using those groups as a vehicle for your message.
Okay.
I was gonna,
Go ahead, Blair.
yeah, I think mine's lead more towards Kevin's. I was thinking about community engagement as well.
Give me an example. I'll start off with one. For instance, you have high school in your community, and every year, without them having to force you to, you go to them and says, look, I want to come to the school assembly one day and talk to the kids about how to be successful in life, or I want to talk to the kids about X, Y, Z, whatever. I want to talk about kids about something that's going to benefit them. I'm not coming to school to talk about when you leave school today, come to my shop and buy something. No, I want to talk to something that makes their life better. That's a huge form of public relations for a business person to do just something like that once a year at a school or at a church or whatever. That's my examples. Anybody, any other kind of examples?
What I'm not sure if this would be applicable, but what about, like, for example, the company that I work for, every graduation they give a scholarship to a student. Is that a good?
Yeah, wonderful. You give a graduate, you give a scholarship, and a scholarship doesn't have to be a ton of money. It can be you running a business and say you have a school in your neighborhood, or you have a school in a neighborhood where you'd like potential clients to come from. And you have to remember too, kids who are graduating from school will probably be working and making money, you hope, within the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Correct.
They are your potential client. Imagine them knowing your name well ahead of that and knowing about what you do simply because you offer a Blair percentage scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
If it's $500, they don't know that.
Exactly.
They just know that there was a Blair percentage scholarship at their school, and the entire 5 years that they went there, they heard about this Blair percentage scholarship, so they know the name. And when they see it again, it becomes something that they associate with something positive. That's a great example of something you can do for public relations. Sure. Anybody, any other examples? Georgia? I know Georgia's still with us, but I see her here. Cleophas? Can the rest of you hear me? I know Georgia and Cleophas seem not to be able to hear me. Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, Cleophas?
Yeah, basically, my one was basically what you just talked about with the initiatives where you got the scholarships or anything where, like an outreach that you build, I guess, your brand, your name, and also relationships with people who are potential clients in the future. So other than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm learning at this stage.
There are endless things. You can be as creative as you want. Say there's a park in a particular area where you have an interest. You can put up a little sign that you're taking care of the park, but you got to take care of it now, because if your park looks like crap, then it's not going to be very helpful. On and on. There's so many things you can do. Marjorie, you have an example.
Yes, yes. In particular, how we're doing community outreaches. You can have donation of your time or funds to one of the children or elderly homes in the name of your company. So for example, if you're donating funds, you can do it in the name of, Marjorie Thomas Estates or whatnot, to do the time, as well as you can do the same thing with the donation of funds for your time.
Yeah, and a lot of small business people don't do these kind of things because they're thinking, my God, I don't have all that money. But
Right.
to be honest with you, you can take less money than it would take to advertise and do this kind of stuff and have a greater impact. Because, for instance, you put an advert in the paper, and a lot of people don't read the advert, and they're certainly going to read it and forget that they saw it. But when you do something reputational, like people, every time they go to the food service place to pick up a meal, they see a sign that says that you are a donor. You may be donating $100 a month. You're a donor. And most signs don't say how much you donate. And a lot of us get really impressed as we walk around and see these donation things. And so this was donated by so-and-so, or so-and-so supports this particular effort. And what we miss is we have no clue what that support is, but we get impressed. And sometimes highfalutin names are only supporting things in a very minor way, but we get impressed. And as small business people, we need to get on board with that kind of thing as well. It's a good method. Kevin.
No, I was saying one of the things that people, the persons I find very effective, people writing articles in the paper. I know it give you a chance to showcase yourself, showcase, put your name out there, and also let's say, for instance, you write an article about property management and the pros and cons and what you have to offer and give suggestions and oversight. So it attaches your name to the profession, and also with papers, end up in various people's hands. So it's very broad and a very wide circulation, and you'd be surprised. I mean, when I read it in the book, I said, "Wow, this can be so effective." Because I keep papers and I read articles, old articles, and those articles really have take a life of their own.
Yeah. I know one of the most successful realtors today. That's what he did for quite a while. I don't know if he does it anymore. I won't call his name, but he used to run an article in the paper for a good number of years. And suddenly that became the person who you associated with real estate in the Bahamas. It's a very effective tool. Odessa.
Okay, I just wanted to mention, oh, sorry, what's the name of the people? Sunshine Insurance. What's their name?
Yeah, you mean
Homes.
the Sunshine Group?
Yes, the Sunshine Group, Arak Homes in particular.
Yeah.
They have for years sponsored events that were related to cancer survivors, health walks, all those type of things. And they've been doing it annually for many, many years now. And I think that was a very effective way of reaching people and putting their name out there. And because they do a whole lot of developments and managing and all of that stuff, they're even now into insurance and stuff, but they did a really good job of promotional stuff that put their company out there in the minds of people. So a lot of times you think of looking for someplace to live or looking for a particular area, and you almost automatically think of Arak Homes, even though they may have other issues, mind you, but their approach to promotions has been really, really, really good.
Yeah, you certainly know, Danny. When you start to think of that area, they pop into your brain. Even if you don't like them, they pop into your brain. You can't help it. These things are important. So, their donations, you can create a podcast. Kevin talked about networking, and so forth and so on. And of course, personal relationships. Personal relationships are key. Having people that when somebody asks them, I need this particular service, and having any number of persons immediately calling your name is effective. I'm going to end with a real life example from myself. I have run a book publishing company for the last 30 or so years. I've never once advertised. I've never once gone out and asked anyone, could I do this service for you? In fact, the problem I have is that I'm constantly having to turn people away. And it's a good problem to have. And what's great about the problem that I have is that I'm able to even decide, okay, I am not doing books of poetry. I'm no longer, which I've done before. I'm no longer doing novels. This is the genre that I like to do, and I'm only going to do that. And so I only do like serious stuff. Well, all things are serious, but I only do like autobiographies or textbooks and things that are challenging to do. But I'm able to do that without ever advertising. I don't have to put my name out there because you establish a reputation where I'm getting calls on almost a weekly basis. I hear that you've done, I saw this thing that you've done, or I was trying to do this thing, I asked around and somebody mentioned you. There is no better advertising or promotional mechanism than you having a good reputation. You can advertise through the nines, but if everybody believes you are, nonsense, it's not going to help you. You can spread your name around as much as you like, but if everybody believes that you do nonsense, it's not going to help you. So the basic thing that you have to think about as a professional is, how do I gain a reputation that when people talk about who is the best or who's among the best, no matter I've never advertised, people will call my name. That's one of your challenges. So we'll end today. Briefly, I want you to have a look at two things that chapter 4, I think we're on, talks about the business plan. And please have a look at that, because one of the exercises you're going to get as a group project, I know I can't stand group projects, but I'm going to have to give you one or two. But one of your group projects is going to be to develop a business plan with a couple of people. So you're going to pretend as if you're creating a business with partners, and you're going to develop a business plan. So this chapter starts talking about what a business plan is and how you put it, and the fact that you have to put it together. You would need to start really thinking and investigating and exploring this issue of a business plan and how do I do that. So we won't discuss that really much today, other than I want you to really start putting some elbow grease into how you would do an effective business plan, because you're going to have to present one as a group project. Be small groups. It might actually just be groups of 2 people if we do that. So it's you and a partner, and I will randomly select who these persons are. Okay, last matter of discussion. This chapter also talks about competitive analysis. And so I'm going to pick on somebody else. I don't know if Georgia is here yet. Georgia, are you here now, or are you still gone? Georgia keeps having problems with her internet. She's been telling me, so I understand. And Blair's dropped off as well. Georgia, are you still here? No. Okay, let me ask Crystal. Crystal, what do you think the difference is? This is the last thing we're going to talk about today. What is the difference you think between a competitive analysis and a comparative market analysis?
A comparative, say it again for me, please, the question.
A competitive analysis and a comparative market analysis. We spent most of this time talking about a comparative market analysis.
Market analysis is more of comparing that of the surrounding area of the market. But competing is basically competition.
Yeah.
What does your company actually have to offer?
Wonderful. So this is something I also want you to be cognizant of, especially we talk about preparing a business plan. One aspect of preparing a business plan is thinking about competitive analysis, because what I see that happens in our country a lot, somebody sets up a business to do X and everybody looks at it and says, oh, I need to do that too. And suddenly they're like, you know, somebody sets up a flower shop on Apple Street. And then when you turn around, there are like 50 flower shops on Apple Street, all selling the same flowers. It's this thing that we do. Someone opens a nightclub, you know, on Coconut Avenue, and suddenly there's a nightclub everywhere. Competitive analysis really makes you think as a business person, what is my competition doing? One, how do they do it? Why are they doing it? You really analyze your competition, your business competition. And one of the reasons for analyzing that is because you want to come up with, how do I come up with a unique value proposition? How am I unique? How do I remain unique? How do I get ahead of the competition? How do I offer and be something that people will not say, oh, that's just another flower shop on Apple Street. You now become something that is like, hey, there's nothing like this, not just in the Bahamas, but in the world. One of the things we need to think about as you move into your profession is, do not restrict your mindset to, I want to be the best, or I want to be a different kind of property manager in the Bahamas. Your profession can operate in the world, and you ought to think of, how do I set up myself so that I can actually operate in the world, not in the Bahamas, not just because the Bahamas is in the world anyhow. What sets you apart? Also, as you think about developing your business plan, if you think about your financial plan, because finance is a huge part of business. You want to make money, and you don't make money unless you have good plans as to how you're going to get that done. You want to decide on how much money you want to make, minimum, and on all sorts of different things. So that's my last take. You have assignments to hand in next week. You will notice, unless somebody missed it, that I asked that you have another crack at your management agreement and hand that in again week after next. So I'm not going to grade it this time. I did have a very good look at them. Anyone who wants to have a discussion with me on their management agreement, you can do so. Just, hit me up on a one-on-one. But I really want all of you to have another crack at it. Some of you did a really good job, but even the ones who did a really good job, I think they deserve another kind of squeeze of the lemon and I give you 2 weeks to do that. So, which means that in 2 weeks, what I do expect is something that I'm going to be able to really be critical about, and you would succeed no matter how critical I am. Okay, any other questions, suggestions, comments, queries, anything anybody wants to chime in on before we go?
I'm not sure. I have a question as it relates to the test. I'm not sure if I missed this question or missed when you elaborated on it. What's the passing grade?
The passing grade, that's a very good question, because I'm gonna be honest and say because I was pulled into this like a day or two before the class started. I normally would have that stuff all set up and decided on. I was trying to get a sort of indication as to what is normally done with what has been normally done with previous courses, but of course the person who hosted the previous course is no longer here. But I will tell you this, what my intentions are currently, which is why I tell you not to focus on grades, is to really put a lot of weight on the final, like to do this sort of like how the real estate people do their stuff and other like your CPA and other people do things, which is your final exam becomes a very weighty thing. So if you do well in that final exam, it is inconceivable that you do not pass, no matter what else you did. Once you do well on the final exam, unless you just kind of borderline on the final exam and did terribly in everything else, then you probably won't pass. If you borderline on the final exam and did really acceptably well in other things, you will pass. And obviously, if you pass the final exam, you would have to do really terribly on other things not to pass. Attendance is a critical thing, as with most of these things. If you don't attend the courses, then that's going to weigh against you, period. So you got to make sure you attend and participate as well. And I consider you doing your assignments and you being in class and participating as a huge part of it. That's a roundabout way, Blair, of saying that I'm gonna settle on the passing. It's got to be high though, because normally when you have exam-based things to measure success, you're looking at trying to get a fairly substantive grade in this exam. The norm in industries is that you got to get like 80% or something like that. Any questions on that? So if you're doing a CPA, CFA, becoming a certified real estate agent, or normally you're looking at, and some of them it's even higher than 80, but normally you're looking at around, it doesn't go low. It's normally around 80% in that final exam. But you know, my design is that all of you pass. So we're going to work on that, and the only persons who can mess that up is you.
Okay.
All right, that's it. I would like to wish you all a wonderful rest of the weekend and a good week next week. Please check in and on the Google Classroom, and I do send most of the stuff there into the WhatsApp chat as well. I will be posting a couple things there. I'll have a look at your quiz and make some comments. In fact, what I'm able to do from your quiz results is to actually show you graphs of performances and so forth without having to say who did what. So I'll share that with you guys, and talk about the main things that you may want to go back and have a look at. So take care and have a good one, and see you soon.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
All right. Take care.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Take care, everybody.